1968 was almost certainly the most tumultuous year of American political history since the Civil War. I was living in an apartment complex called Arlington Towers in Virginia, just across the Key Bridge from Georgetown in Washington, D.C. And in fact, the Vietnam Training Center, where I went for language studies, was in that same apartment complex. So I'd ride the elevator down in the morning, walk from one building to another, and I'd be right there at class. We were right adjacent to, and indeed, really part of Washington, D.C. The war effort had gone apparently reasonably well. There was intense fighting. We had 500,000 troops in Vietnam, and the reports back were of this battle, Operation Cedar Falls, and what success it was having, and body count. And it appeared that, while difficult, it was going in the right direction. And a few people were even seeing, well, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which became a phrase that was commonly echoed at those times. And then came January 31st. TET is the New Year celebration. It's like Chinese New Year, except in Vietnam. Same time frame. In the early spring, January 31st, winter in America, but in Asia, it's the beginning of spring. It's a little different date each year. And in Vietnam, it was supposedly a time of sort of a truce. The fighting would stop. Vietnamese soldiers on both sides could spend some time celebrating in a traditional manner. And then when it was over, after a week, they'd go back to the war. And so celebrations were and festivities were taking place all across Vietnam and in Saigon. And this was the time when the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army, the communist side of the war, launched a secret attack all across the country, in every city, but particularly in Saigon and the ancient capital of Hue. And fighting in the streets, fighting everywhere. And in fact, Viet Cong troops got to the American embassy, into the embassy compound, and were working their way up to the top of the embassy and buildings on the embassy compound. One of the American officials who was living there at the time shot Viet Cong as they were trying to climb in the window of his residence. The Marines had to be reinforced, and these stories were playing on TV all across the United States. And it called into question these TV reports, and firsthand you could watch and see what was happening the whole course of the war. How could it be that the United States military, which just 20 years earlier had defeated Germany and Japan in a two-front war during World War II, not be able to deal with a peasant army, and that this situation was so bad that they even could get into what should have been the safest place anywhere in Vietnam, the American embassy. Walter Cronkite, who was the uncle that everyone would hear giving the news every night on CBS, went to Vietnam. He came back and gave his assessment. And on the air, as he was reporting, he sighed and told the American people he didn't know how TET was going to come out. This was the first of what would become a number of dramatic events in 1968 that would turn American politics upside down.